You have always felt slightly displaced in rooms where everyone else seems comfortable. Not superior, not special, displaced. As if the conversation is happening on the surface of a lake and you are standing at the bottom, watching their laughter ripple above you like weather. They talk about weekend plans, gossip, status, purchases, little victories, little humiliations, and some part of you participates because you have learned the choreography. You nod at the right time. You smile when the room expects a smile. You ask the harmless question. But inside, there is an old silence sitting behind your eyes, observing everything with a patience that does not belong to your age. You look at people your own age and you feel the distance immediately. Their urgency exhausts you. Their need to be seen feels childish. Their loyalty to trends, reactions, arguments, and social rituals feels like a village festival you outgrew before you ever entered it. You are not immune to desire. You are not above pain. But your pain seems to have aged differently. It did not make you louder. It made you watchful. It did not make you beg for attention. It made you suspicious of attention. It did not make you chase belonging at any price. It made you question what kind of person would need a crowd to confirm that he exists. And this is why you have often wondered if something is wrong with you. Why do you feel tired of games others still find exciting? Why do compliments not feed you the way they seem to feed them? Why does small talk feel like breathing through cloth? Why do you sense the hidden motive before the sentence is finished? Why do you withdraw? Not because you hate people, but because too much unexamined noise feels like violence against your interior. You have been called distant, intense, old-fashioned, difficult, too serious, too private. These words were not descriptions. They were attempts to pull you back down into the common temperature of the room. Here is the colder truth. You may not be broken. You may be prematurely initiated. Something in your life, your temperament, your wounds, your perception, or your solitude forced you to develop an older mind before the world expected it from you. Carl Jung would not have treated this as a social defect. He would have seen it as a sign that the psyche has been pushed into contact with deeper material. Shadow, memory, meaning, instinct, the parts of the human being that most people avoid until age humiliates them into seriousness. But be warned. Feeling mentally older is not automatically wisdom. Sometimes it is wisdom, sometimes it is trauma wearing a philosopher's coat. Today we are going to separate the two. Jung understood that the soul does not mature according to the calendar. A man can be 50 and still be governed by the emotional machinery of a frightened adolescent. Another can be 23 and already carry the grave, uncomfortable knowledge that life is not a playground. People are not transparent, love is not always pure, and the self is not the cheerful little mask society congratulates. Jung called that mask the persona, the social face built to survive among other faces. Most people mistake the persona for the whole man. They polish it, defend it, decorate it, and then wonder why their private life feels hollow. The mentally older person feels the split earlier. You can feel the difference between the face someone is wearing and the thing moving beneath it. You can feel your own mask becoming heavy. You know when you're performing normality. You know when your laugh is a passport, when your politeness is camouflage, when your silence is the only honest thing in the room. That awareness is expensive. It separates you from the herd before you have developed the language to explain the separation. This is why Jung matters here. He did not worship comfort. He did not tell people to become more agreeable, more liked, more socially fluent. He believed the goal of life was individuation, the painful movement toward becoming whole. Whole does not mean pleasant. Whole means you have stopped exiling the parts of yourself that frighten polite society. Whole means you have met your shadow and no longer need to pretend your motives are always clean. Whole means you can stand alone without collapsing into resentment or begging the crowd to rescue you from yourself. If you feel mentally older than everyone around you, there are likely 7 traits operating beneath the surface. They are not decorations. They are burdens that can become weapons if you discipline them. Left unconscious, they will make you bitter, isolated, and quietly arrogant. Made conscious, they will turn you into something rare, a person who can see without flinching and live without asking permission from the sleeping. The first trait is that you recognize patterns before other people admit there is a pattern. You are not merely observant in the shallow sense. You do not just notice clothes, tone, timing, expression. You notice repetition. You notice that the friend who praises you in private becomes faintly competitive whenever an audience appears. You notice that the charming co-worker always volunteers for visible work and vanishes when the work becomes thankless. You notice that a family member asks innocent questions only when they are gathering material for a later judgment. You notice the rhythm beneath behavior, and once you have seen the rhythm, you cannot unsee it. This makes you feel older because youth believes events are separate. Youth thinks the apology is new, the promise is new, the betrayal is new, the sudden affection after neglect is new. The older mind sees recurrence. It knows that a person is not revealed by one beautiful sentence. A person is revealed by what returns. Jung would have connected this to the unconscious, because what is not made conscious does not disappear. It repeats itself as fate. People reenact their wounds, their envies, their fears, and their hidden desires. They call it choice because the word protects their dignity. But the pattern is often choosing through them. You have suffered because of this trait. You saw endings while others were still enjoying beginnings. You sensed the fracture in a friendship months before the final argument. You felt the coldness in a relationship before anyone confessed it. You predicted the collapse of a plan while everyone else celebrated the enthusiasm around it. And because you spoke too early, they called you negative. Because you saw too clearly, they accused you of poisoning the mood. So learn restraint. The older mind does not announce every pattern it sees, it records, it waits. It lets people reveal the truth at the speed their pride can tolerate. Seeing early is power only when you stop needing applause for the sight. The second trait is that you understand darkness without being impressed by it. This is rare. Many people either deny the dark parts of human nature or romanticize them like children discovering a forbidden room. They think manipulation is glamorous, cruelty is strength, emotional coldness is sophistication. That is not maturity, that is adolescence wearing black clothing. The mentally older person is different. You do not need to pretend people are angels, and you do not need to worship their demons. You know both exist because you have found both inside yourself. Jung called this the shadow, the rejected part of the personality. The impulses, resentments, envies, hungers, and capacities for harm that the persona refuses to recognize. The ordinary person says, "I would never do that." The older mind says, "Under the wrong conditions, with enough fear, enough humiliation, enough desire, I might." That sentence is not moral collapse. It is the beginning of moral seriousness. A person who believes he is incapable of evil is the easiest person for evil to use, because he never sees it entering him. This trait makes you less shocked by betrayal, not untouched. Less shocked. When someone lies, you are hurt, but a quiet part of you says, "Of course." Humans protect their image. When someone envies you, you are disappointed, but not confused. Humans compare. When someone abandons a principle the moment it becomes expensive, you do not collapse in disbelief. You recognize the ancient bargain. Comfort for conscience, approval for truth, safety for honor, but be careful, knowing the shadow can make you contemptuous. You may begin to look at ordinary innocence as stupidity. You may mistake your disillusionment for superiority. Do not. The point of seeing darkness is not to sneer at those who still speak in daylight language. The point is to become less controllable by fantasy. You do not become wise by hating mankind. You become wise by seeing mankind clearly and still choosing your conduct with discipline. The shadow teaches you this: never trust virtue that has not been tested under pressure, especially your own. The third trait is that stimulation no longer deceives you. Other people confuse movement with meaning. They fill the day with messages, entertainment, flirtation, outrage, errands, plans, noise, and call this being alive. You have tried it. You have sat in crowded places and felt more alone than you feel in an empty room. You have watched people escape themselves through constant contact, and you have sensed the desperation beneath their brightness. They are not always happy. Often they are merely occupied. This is why you protect solitude in a way others misunderstand. Your solitude is not always sadness. Sometimes it is sanitation. It is the place where your nervous system stops being handled by other people's moods. It is where your own thoughts return from exile. Jung knew that without solitude, the unconscious has no doorway. The deeper self does not speak over crowds. It does not compete with notifications. It waits until the surface noise has died. Then it sends images, dreams, irritations, memories, strange attractions, unexplained resistance. These are not random disturbances. They are messengers from the basement of the psyche. Mentally older people need this basement. You cannot live only in the lobby of existence, smiling at visitors and pretending the building has no lower floors. You need to descend. You need to ask why a comment wounded you so deeply, why a person attracted you against your judgment, why a particular success felt empty, why certain rooms make you feel like a child again. This is not overthinking. Overthinking circles the same fear. Depth thinking descends beneath the fear and asks what created it. But solitude has a poison. If you use it only to avoid human difficulty, it becomes a beautiful prison. Jung did not recommend withdrawal as an escape from life. He saw inner work as preparation for a more honest life. So leave the crowd when the crowd corrupts your center. Return when your center is strong enough to meet the crowd without being consumed by it. The fourth trait is that authority does not hypnotize you. Titles impress the young mind because the young mind still wants parents in expensive clothing. It wants someone official to carry the burden of certainty. It wants the boss, the expert, the celebrity, the older relative, the confident speaker, the institution, to stand above confusion and declare what is real. But the mentally older person has seen too much human frailty hiding behind polished doors. You have watched incompetent people occupy serious chairs. You have watched cruel people speak the language of care. You have watched foolish people become loud enough to be mistaken for leaders. This does not make you rebellious in the childish sense. You do not reject authority simply because it is authority. That is another form of dependency. The adolescent still defining himself against the father. Your mind does something colder. It evaluates. You ask whether the person has earned the weight they carry. You look for competence beneath confidence, sacrifice beneath moral speech, consequences behind instructions. You understand that power often wears a costume before it possesses substance. Jung's work on the persona matters here again. Public identity can become a possession. A man begins by wearing a role, then the role begins wearing him. The doctor cannot admit ignorance. The spiritual teacher cannot admit envy. The executive cannot admit fear. The parent cannot admit that the child sometimes sees more clearly. The persona becomes a throne, and the person sitting on it begins to rot quietly under the robes. Because you sense this, you are difficult to program. You may obey rules when they are useful. You may respect rank when rank is deserved. But you do not surrender your judgment just because someone speaks from a raised platform. This frightens insecure authorities. They prefer obedience with soft eyes. They prefer people who confuse confidence with truth. When you look at them calmly and assess rather than submit, they feel the inspection. Let them. The mentally older person is not anti-authority. He is anti-worship. That distinction protects your soul from becoming another's property. The fifth trait is that you have a private relationship with impermanence. Some people know they will die only as an idea. You know it as an atmosphere. Maybe you lost someone early. Maybe you watched a household collapse. Maybe illness, failure, betrayal, or sudden change taught you that life does not ask permission before it removes what you thought was stable. Whatever the cause, a veil was torn. Since then, you have had difficulty joining the childish religion of permanence. This is why certain conversations feel unbearable to you. People speak as if time is endless. They postpone apology, they postpone courage, they postpone leaving what is dead. They speak of someday as if someday has signed a contract with them. You listen and feel an almost physical impatience, not because you are dramatic, but because some inner clock is louder in you. You know that years can vanish while a person is waiting to become honest. Jung believed the second half of life demands a confrontation with meaning, death, and the soul. But some people are dragged into that confrontation early. They begin asking second-half questions while standing in a first-half body. What am I serving? What is worth my attention? What part of me is false? What would remain if the applause stopped? These questions make you strange among people still organizing themselves around appearances. This trait can make you severe. You may have little patience for frivolity, and if you are not careful, you will confuse lightness with shallowness. Do not. The mind that remembers death must also learn how to let a morning be beautiful without interrogating it. Impermanence is not a command to become grim. It is a command to become awake. Use it to sharpen your choices, not to darken every room you enter. When you understand impermanence, you stop treating your life like a rehearsal. You stop waiting for permission to end the lie. Leave the dead circle, protect the sacred hour, speak the necessary sentence. The older mind knows that delay is not neutral. Delay is a thief wearing the mask of patience. The sixth trait is that you became your own witness early. This is one of the heaviest signs of an old mind. Somewhere along the line, you learned that not every pain would be noticed. Not every fear would be translated. Not every achievement would be understood by the people whose recognition you wanted. So another faculty developed inside you, a silent witness, an inner adult standing beside the younger wounded part of you saying, "I see what happened. I know what it cost." We will not go insane simply because they refuse to understand. This witness is not the same as self-pity. Self-pity wants the world to gather around the wound. The witness simply keeps an accurate record. It remembers what you survived without turning survival into a performance. It notices when you're betraying yourself. It notices when you're acting from fear disguised as kindness, ambition disguised as destiny, resentment disguised as principle. This is why you can be so hard to lie to, even when you are the liar. Something in you watches the transaction. Jung would call this movement toward the self, not the ego, but the deeper organizing center of the psyche. The ego wants to look good. The self wants wholeness. The ego negotiates with appearances. The self sends symptoms when you betray your nature. Anxiety, dreams, fatigue, irritability, fascination, resistance. These are not always obstacles. Sometimes they are telegrams from the part of you that refuses to be sacrificed for approval. But the witness can become a prosecutor. If you turn self-awareness into self-punishment, you will build an internal prison with exquisite architecture. You will analyze every motive until action becomes impossible. You will accuse yourself of defects that are simply human. The task is not to become a perfect judge of yourself. The task is to become a loyal guardian. A guardian sees clearly, corrects firmly, and does not humiliate the person he is protecting. Be that guardian. The old mind must learn mercy, or its wisdom becomes another weapon pointed inward. The seventh trait is that you feel called by meaning more than by approval. This is the trait that separates the merely tired from the genuinely deep. Many people become cynical and call it maturity. They stop believing in anything because believing once hurt them. That is not an old soul. That is a wounded ego protecting itself with ash. The mentally older person may be disillusioned, but beneath the disillusionment, there remains a dangerous hunger for meaning. You cannot live only for comfort. You cannot worship convenience. You cannot build your life around being liked by people whose inner life you do not respect. Jung saw the human being as a meaning-making creature, not in a cheap motivational sense, but in an ancient, symbolic sense. Dreams, myths, religious images, recurring fears, attractions and fantasies all point toward the psyche trying to complete itself. You may have noticed this in your own life. A book appears at the right moment and feels like it was written from inside your chest. A place you have never been feels strangely familiar. A dream follows you into the morning like a visitor who has not finished speaking. A particular image, forest, tower, ocean, fire, locked room, keeps returning until you finally ask what part of you is trying to speak through it. This makes you less satisfied with ordinary success. Money matters, but it cannot answer the question of what your life is for. Status can open doors, but it cannot tell you which room deserves your soul. Pleasure can quiet the surface for an evening, but it cannot negotiate peace with the unconscious. You need a life that feels internally authorized. You need work, relationships, and solitude arranged around something deeper than applause. But meaning is dangerous when it becomes vanity. Some people discover symbolism and immediately appoint themselves prophets. They mistake every mood for a message, every coincidence for destiny, every attraction for fate. Do not become that person. Jung respected the unconscious, but he did not advise surrendering your reason to it. The old mind must keep one foot in mystery and one foot on stone. Interpret the signs, but pay your bills. Listen to dreams, but watch behavior. Feel the calling, but test it through discipline. Meaning that cannot survive responsibility is not meaning, it is intoxication. If this trait is alive in you, you will always feel slightly exiled from people who live only horizontally, from one distraction to the next, one appetite to the next, one social proof to the next. You are built vertically, you need descent and ascent, you need roots and sky. You need a life that does not betray the secret seriousness you have carried since before you had words for it. Now understand the danger of all 7 traits. Pattern recognition, shadow awareness, solitude, resistance to false authority, intimacy with impermanence, the inner witness, and the hunger for meaning can make you powerful. They can also make you unbearable. If you use them to build a throne above other people, you will become the very caricature they accuse you of being, a cold spectator with elegant explanations and no living heart. Jung would have despised that. Individuation is not becoming superior to others. It is becoming responsible for what you are. So do not say, "I am older than them," as if it grants you exemption from patience. Say, "I have been given material that must be integrated." Do not turn your loneliness into a religion. Do not turn your perception into a blade you swing at everyone who cannot see what you see. Do not turn your seriousness into contempt for joy. The old mind is not here to sneer at the young mind. It is here to govern itself so completely that the world cannot recruit its wounds into bitterness. Look at your life with colder honesty. Where have you confused depth with avoidance? Where have you called fear wisdom? Where have you hidden from ordinary human warmth because you were afraid of needing it? Where have you dismissed people as shallow because it was easier than risking disappointment? These questions are not comfortable, they are necessary. The shadow does not only contain cruelty and lust. It also contains your unlived tenderness, your forbidden playfulness, your capacity to belong without surrendering your soul. This is the final test of the mentally older person. Can you keep your vision without becoming hard? Can you know the darkness without marrying it? Can you stand apart without secretly begging to be admired for standing apart? Can you carry seriousness without losing the ability to laugh quietly at the absurdity of being human? If you can, then your age is not a wound, it is an initiation. You will still feel displaced in certain rooms, let that be. You will still hear conversations that feel like paper rubbing against paper, let that be. You will still meet people who call your silence arrogance because they cannot imagine an interior life that does not perform for them. Let that be. Your task is not to make the sleeping understand the dream. Your task is to wake fully inside your own life. If this reached the part of you that has been carrying an old mind in a world addicted to childish noise, subscribe. Not because you need another voice to follow, but because you are done apologizing for depth. You are ready to turn it into discipline. The world does not need you younger, it needs you whole and awake.